Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, once again to the United States Hot Rod Association Championship Mud Racing and Monster Truck Tour. I'm Brett Kempner, and along with Jerry Devine, we'll be bringing you the action this time around from a brand new facility and a brand new track at the Orlando, Florida Arena. And Jerry, this brand new building has a setting that couldn't be matched. One of the quickest mud racing tracks we could imagine, and an extremely competitive monster truck field.
And we're going to see the best of the best in both divisions tonight. And coming up first, we've got qualifying in the monster truck division. We're back with the U.S. Hot Rod Association in Orlando, Florida. Tonight's program being brought to you in part by Kicker, high-performance automotive speakers by Stillwater Designs. Well, we're going into qualifying now, Brett, with the monster trucks. And here's Jack Willman and Taurus.
This is a big, big night for Jack Willman, a course that he himself likes very much, and a chance for him to move up from his current #2 position in the U.S. Hot Rod Association Monster Truck World Point Standings. Racing against the clock for position in this qualifying round, the lightweight Chevy from Illinois.
Not the typical Jack Willman run.
That is a huge, huge shock. I would venture to say that that was a complete error in judgment at how to approach this track. The first man out, of course, always has it rough, but look at this launch. Very conservative in the power. Then he gets out of the throttle just before the hit, and every time you do that, you'll go into a bumper-dragging wheel stand. The truck comes down hard, bouncing so violently that it actually goes off the course, and Willman cannot be happy with that at all. Most drivers were expecting elapsed times in the 3-second zone on this short course. 6.96 seconds is going to keep Willman way down in this field.
Well, coming up next is going to be Barefoot with Fred Shafer behind the controls.
The lightweight Chevrolet from Pontoon Beach, Illinois is easily one of the hardest running machines in the sport.
And Fred Shafer really grabbing a lot of air.
You know, the last couple of events, Jerry, we've been talking about aggressive drivers. Fred Shafer is about as aggressive as you get. The launch on that particular run, literally picking the front wheels up. Look at this thing, spinning the tires because the front end is going airborne. He also backed out of the throttle just a little bit before impact, and that's what caused the car, or truck, I should say, to go so high in the air. The elapsed time, though, 4.71 seconds is much more realistic.
Well, part of it is, though, Brett, because there's such a short span between the starting line and where the trucks have to back up against this wall. Now, here we see John Pyant with Bigfoot. Bigfoot currently is the point leader at this point of the point standings. And John Pyant getting his neck brace in place and getting ready to go. Now, watch, there's a very short distance between the starting line and actually where they hit those cars.
True, it's not unlike other courses we've seen this year, and it's very difficult. You want to keep the truck as low to the ground as possible to be able to apply power, or you want to use all your power on the start to literally try to jump the whole course.
All right, let's watch John Pyant now with Bigfoot. See how he does. Whoa! Much better until he hit the cars, and then he went sideways.
That was the first serious aggressive attempt we've seen outside of Freddie Shafer, and the landing was so rough that it caused Pyant literally to hook to the right. You see him giving everything he's got, full power, including up over the first car. But on this landing, the cars have not been crushed down yet. He bounces all over the place, but still, the elapsed time, 4.58 seconds. That will be good for the #1 spot, and I'll tell you, that gives an indication there's more left in that truck.
All right, coming up next, this is the Southern Hustler, Kevin Dabney, doing the driving.
Recently moved to Florida, so he is the new home state hero now with one of the very few small block powered trucks. It's got a Chevy engine behind the driver. It's a lightweight entry, too. This thing can fly.
All right, Kevin Dabney, thumbs up. He's ready to go. Up, up. Still not one of the best ones.
I'll tell you, the initial impact point is giving these drivers problem, and to see Kevin Dabney back out of the throttle like that indicates that it's rougher than we thought. Kevin Dabney will normally drive it absolutely to the wall if he has to. He leaves the starting line under power, drops the throttle just a little bit before the cars to gauge his positions, and that puts the truck straight up and down, and that's where you're going to lose all your time. The landing was rough enough that he slid off the side of the cars as well, and amazingly just got out of the throttle, coasted through at 7.14 seconds. But at least that should keep him in the field. I don't think he'll have any trouble getting knocked out of the program with that, Jerry.
Well, here are the standings now in the qualifying for the monster trucks. Kevin Dabney had the number 4 position with a 7.14. Jack Wilburn with a 6.96. Fred Shafer with Barefoot turned in a 4.71, and the low elapsed time for tonight with John Pyant and Bigfoot with a 4.58.
And you know what that means, Jerry? Something that the crowd was only hoping that would actually happen. A match in the first round of eliminations between the number 1 and number 2 points drivers, Bigfoot versus Taurus. But coming up next, along with that, are mud racers, literally 24 of them, ready to battle it out on a brand new racetrack for the track record and the points.
Welcome back to the Orlando Arena. Well, Brad, a brand new arena, and we've got 24 mud racers ready to go tonight.
It's amazing that an opening event has drawn so many competitors, but literally every one of the sport's finest is here to open this event, including this man, Dick Wilson, who was one of the 3 drivers who were the first under 2 seconds flat. In fact, we'll be seeing all 3 of them. There's Chad Miller in the Instant T, who you saw run into problems just a little while ago on our ESPN coverage of U.S. Hobbit Association events with a crash in Tampa. And you know, Jerry, this event, although it may be a new program, is not the first in the state of Florida by any stretch. In fact, for many, many years, back when the U.S. Hobbit Association first started sanctioning these events, the Florida mud racers were the quickest in the country, including Al Stebbins' Black Magic Corvette. That car was one of the fastest in the country for years, about a decade ago.
Well, actually, these drivers got kind of a head start in the sport because down here in Florida, they have what's called swamp buggies. And the swamp buggies were probably the first of the mud racers around the country.
That's a very good point. That's really where this sport came from. The sport of mud racing is such a conglomeration of drag racing, off-road racing, swamp buggy racing, like you said, that a lot of that originality came from the state of Florida when they started designing machines specifically for short distance, through the mud, straight line runs. And now, of course, this sport has become serious enough to the point where we can sell out a brand new building for the first ever national championship event in Orlando. And of course, the one man that everybody is here to see is the 2-time world champ, the first man ever under 2 seconds flat, and he did it at Tampa in 1987, the one and only Tom Martin in the Mud Patrol. He is leading the U.S. Hobbit Association world point standings for the 3rd straight year. The first driver is up.
Remember now, it's 80 feet to start, 80 feet to stop. First driver coming up is the A-Team, Dick Wilson. Let's watch him. Here we go. Good run through the mud.
Actually, it looked like Wilson was a little conservative there. As the first man out, he'll usually be able to get better traction. You'll see him blasting through the standing water on top of the mud that is indicative of the first run. 2.21 seconds on the very first run down this track. And I was going to say that he actually shut the engine off just before the finish line. He was apparently worried about stopping.
All right, coming up next is the Instant T. Chad Miller behind the controls.
This is the machine we saw go end over end just 2 short months ago in Tampa. Supercharged Chevy-powered 1927 Ford Street Roadster. This thing can fly.
A lot of horsepower.
Well, our regular ESPN viewers will remember just 2 short months ago when Chad Miller put this machine upside down in front of 64,000 people at Tampa Stadium. And to come back to tonight's event has got to be one of the great thrashes we've seen, Jerry.
Without a doubt. Let's watch him now as Chad Miller brings up the Instant T.
Gotta think this guy is anxious after that crash coming back.
You've got to wonder what goes through these drivers' minds right at this point, right now, looking down that track after an accident like that. Wow! Look at this!
Unbelievable run for Miller. The machine actually started to make a move towards the outer boundary near the finish line, but he stayed in it right to the 80-foot mark. Look at the launch. Perfect launch. The machine just jumping over the mud the way it's supposed to be done. And look at the elapsed time. The second run down this track is the first under 2 seconds flat. 1.99 seconds. What a comeback, Jerry.
Unbelievable. All right, coming up next is Stroken. This is Pat Robinson from Darby, Florida.
Short wheelbase Jeep CJ with a Chevrolet power plant, I should say, is pretty much the standard combination, at least in this part of the country.
These short wheelbase vehicles with all that horsepower sometimes get pretty squirrely. A good straight run here, though.
I'll tell you what, that was an amazing pass, as he actually got on the brakes a little bit earlier than he needed to, and that was a graphic example of just how deep this mud is at the finish line, 36 inches worth. He leaves the starting line beautifully. This was kind of a jaw-dropper for most of the competitors, I would have to think. 2.24 seconds, an excellent, excellent run for the stroking entry. I got to tell you, Jerry, I think that this track is going to be a lot quicker than anybody realized. You know, the soil down here is very sandy. No matter how wet you get it, it'll hook up.
Well, that's right. Well, look what we got coming up next. Black Magic and Al Stebbins. Al is from Orlando.
The hometown hero, one of the strongest racers ever with this incredible fuel-injected, nitrous oxide-injected Corvette. This thing for 10 years has been a killer.
Remember now, it's 80 feet to start and 80 feet to stop. Whoa, and he hits the DQ line.
And the crowd knows it. And that was an incredible run. He just goes out by a couple of inches. Look at this, just skimming the surface, even airborne at the finish line. Hard on the brakes. Watch him bend the banner. He doesn't even knock it down. The 80-foot disqualification line is passed by inches. He's out. The elapsed time, Jerry, would have been a track record, 1.96 seconds.
Oh, and the crowd loves it.
What a tough break for the hometown hero, Stebbins. You can see him in the cockpit there. He knows what happened, and he's upset.
Lots more racing from Orlando coming up, so stay with us. Monster truck racing along with lots more mud racing.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Orlando Arena in Orlando, Florida. And, Jerry, we've already seen some incredible numbers from the mud racing ranks.
Fantastic, and we got lots of monster racing yet to go. But coming up next, it's going to be Clay Langley, and he's the driver of the Nitro Express.
The winningest mud racer in U.S. Harvard Association history with his supercharged small block Chevrolet powered machine.
And he is poised and ready to go. We're looking from the finish line. Here we go. Wow, that's got to be a great time.
I'll tell you what, that was an exceptional run for Clay. Even though there was a little bit of tire spin, I almost wonder if it wasn't his choice of tread on this particular run. Yeah, there's a lot of spin off the starting line. He never did get the tires completely out of the mud. You can see about 3 inches of depth there. 2.47 seconds won't help him a bit. And, Jerry, it's important to remember that the only real rules in U.S. Harvard Association Super Modified Mud Racing concern the tires. You have to use street stock tires, but you can cut them any way you want.
Mark Waitros with the Michigan Off-Road. This is a funny car.
Talked about this machine many times. Ford power in a Ford Thunderbird funny car from Michigan.
Now watch this one when it runs. Watch what the exhaust does to that mud coming off those front tires. Look at this.
Sends it sky high, and boy, he is close to the disqualification mark, 80 feet past the finish line. Again, the tires come up pretty nicely, but still a lot of spin at the back kept the rear of the car down. He never got the traction he needed. 2.17 seconds, however, will at this point get him in the shootout round.
All right, here we go. This is Bad Habit, Byron Tinky.
Byron has been a U.S. Harvard Association competitor for years now, switching this year to his first supercharged Chevrolet power plant, and this is a brand new engine combination.
Byron's from Tiffin, Iowa. Great run!
On the brakes hard. He just barely stops in time.
Oh, is he happy?
He knows it. Boy, does he know it. That banner marking disqualification literally inches from the front of the car. He had to go quicker than 2.24 seconds to get in. 1.92 seconds. Another new track record for Byron Tinky. What a pass.
Oh, is he happy?
You don't think he's thinking that it paid off to switch to a supercharged engine? Boy, he's happy.
All right, coming up, our next racer just about ready to go. This is the Budweiser T-Bird, Tommy Walker.
Another Ford Thunderbird body style. This one's substantially different than Mark Watros's, though, with a carbureted Ford power plant, the Instigator.
Tommy Walker just about ready to go. Oh, he goes right down to the bottom of this one.
I'll tell you, so many times. We bring up the fact that people don't realize that there's anywhere from 36 to 48 inches of mud at the finish line, and if you get out of the throttle, you're going to sink to the bottom like the Titanic. And that's exactly what the Instigator proved when it lost power right at the finish line. 205 will get him in the shootout. That means the bump spot drops to 217.
Stumpy Steve, Jody Kelly up next. Jody Kelly from Waxhaw, North Carolina. Wow! He gets it stopped.
I'll tell you what, these runs are getting quicker as we go. This track isn't deteriorating, it's getting better. Just skimming the mud surface again, that's the idea. 1.98 seconds, Jerry. We've got 3 machines under 2 seconds flat. You've got to go quicker than 2.05 seconds now just to get in the quick 4.
Next little hot rod comes up to the starting line.
Well, these guys are true underdogs. The incredible USA 1 Chevy Blazer of Rich Larson, 3,000 pounds of Chevy. It's 1,000 pounds heavier than anything else out here.
Rich Larson is about ready to go. Oh, a good run.
I cannot believe that truck ran this quick, but a lot of that has to do with the track. 3,300 pound Chevy Blazer with a carbureted Chevy motor, 2.22 seconds. A heck of a run for these guys. They decided to enter the competition here this weekend just as a thing to do, really, and they made their presence known.
All right, here's the American-made Jim Weber behind the controls.
This is a machine that set the USHRA Association world record at 1.81 seconds. The Milwaukee, Wisconsin-based supercharged Chevy-powered machine is always tough.
All right, Jim Weber just about ready to go. Whoa! And he hits the line.
I'll tell you, just barely hits the line. Again, not more than 1.5 feet over the disqualification boundary. Weber wastes a beautiful pass. You could see that the machine was doing everything perfect. The idea not to drive through the mud, but to skim over it. And the real heartbreaker as he just bounces across that disqualification banner is that it would have been a 2:03 elapsed time, good enough to get in.
Coming up next, John Cruz, and he'll be here with Magic Moments. Little 510 Brett.
This is typical of the people who changed to the Tom Martin body style. The early 1932 Ford with supercharged Chevrolet power is becoming very popular.
Have you noticed in 1990 how all these bikes? All right, a good run. And Magic Moments turns in a time of 2.19 seconds. And he's going to need a little assistance to get out.
One thing's for sure, this mud is tacky, and if you get stuck down near the finish line, you're going to need a tow. You're not going to get out of there under your own power.
Oh, and talk about Tom Martin. Here he is right now. Tom Martin with the Mud Patrol.
The two-time USHRA Association Super Modified World Champ with a nitrous oxide injected Chevy engine, no supercharger, has got to go quicker than 2.05 seconds to qualify.
From Portage, Indiana, here we go. Whoa! He hangs on.
And he knows it, showing the crowd he's still number 1. And I guarantee you, Jerry, that was an intentional move down there at the finish line. He knew he was going to drive it well past the finish line. The engine would shut off because of the kill switch. Then he purposely put it sideways. He just barely, surprisingly, just barely gets in the field. Number 4 in a 4-car shootout at 2:02. That is surprising. Normally, Tom Martin will come out here and blow away all the track records.
Certainly is. Tom Martin, a big man.
We call him the world's largest world champion.
It is for sure, but he's happy right now. He's in the field.
6'6", 375 pounds. The man is big in more ways than one. Coming up next, we've got more competition, but this time it's the number 1 and 2 points monster truck competitors in a side-by-side dash. Stay with us.
We're back at the Orlando Arena with the U.S. Hot Rod Association. Tonight's event being brought to you in part by Kicker, high-performance automotive speakers by Stillwater Designs. Coming up next, the Monster Trucks, Brett.
Round 1 features a dream matchup, Jerry. We talked about this after qualifying. Here is the World Championship points leader, a very, very familiar truck against the machine that is number 2 behind him in the battle for the world title. This will be war.
Bigfoot, driven by John Pyant. is the big, bad blue Ford machine from St. Louis. And he's coming to the line. And he's got his hands full right now on this matchup right here coming up.
You know, the Bob Chandler team out of St. Louis, Missouri has been concerned recently about the engine that they're using in this truck. It is not the strongest motor they're capable of producing. They have 3 new motors going together for this truck that they swear will put it so far out in front, no one will touch it. But right now, John Pine has to be concerned. He's giving up a sizable weight disadvantage to the Taurus Chevrolet, and for that matter, the Taurus truck, at least in qualifying, looked to be a little bit stronger.
There's one thing you got to remember, that this track that we're running on tonight is pretty short.
That's true, and that's what caused Taurus to qualify so far down in the field, number 3. And indeed, if Willman can show the true power of this thing and get it to the ground, it will be a close race.
Jack Willman with Taurus, and this is what we call a racer monster truck.
A lightweight, high horsepower combination.
So this ought to be a dandy. All right, here we go. Both drivers about ready. Takes the win.
An upset if there ever was one, and the fans can't believe their eyes. Both drivers with handling problems, but it almost looked like the whole shot was the difference. The big purple GMC goes to the final round.
Jack Willman, and he is one happy man. Let's take a look now at the replay.
It looked like Taurus got the whole shot that he needed. Beautiful power going into the first set of cars, but look at that rough landing. Man, I didn't realize from the other angle that it was quite that violent. Willman did an incredible job just keeping that thing upright, and I don't honestly think he knew who won when he shut that thing down. In the other lane, John Pine was doing everything he could to keep the Bigfoot Ford straight after a sideways qualifying run. It gets sideways in the air. It lands sideways well short of the finish line. He also had trouble keeping it straight, but the big difference is that the blue Ford was second at the finish line.
No question about it, Brett. You know, inside these trucks, these drivers really take a beating.
Well, they're wearing a ton of safety equipment, everything from girdles to protect the kidney area, to neck collars, to helmets, to fire suits, and you still get thrown around.
All right, the winner of this next race now will face Taurus in the finals. This is Barefoot.
Well, once again, we're looking at a situation with an underdog here. Kevin Dabney trying to take advantage of a starting line launch, a hole shot per se, to try and keep out in front of a much more powerful truck. Freddie Shafer's Barefoot Chevy is putting out an honest 1,800 horsepower. This little small block Chevy powered rear engine machine of Dabney puts out about 1,200, so he's got to do something to equalize that on the starting line.
The Kevin Dabney machine is powered by an engine that is right behind the driver, sitting in where the bed would be of the pickup truck.
It's an interesting combination, very unusual weight distribution on this truck, which causes it sometimes to be a real handful to drive. One thing's for sure, we talked about Fred Shafer's aggressiveness in the Barefoot Chevy. Let's face it, if Fred has to, he'll drive right over his opponent to win.
All right, both drivers coming to the line.
Dabney not quite sure where he wants to line this thing up. Interestingly, he's going very far to the inside of his lane. That's unusual, Jeff.
That's true. Trying to find a little bit different strategy here.
Drivers use the crushed cars as a track surface, and they look for less holes, a little bit more metal to put some power to. Now Dabney appears to be satisfied.
Some of these theories, as you know, don't necessarily work out, though, the way some of these drivers plan it.
Dabney's got to try anything he can. He is the underdog here. Waiting patiently on the starting line, the crew's going to line him up one more time. I don't believe he's changed his mind again. Now he's going back over to the center of the lane. You know, Jerry, this could be the monster truck racing version of a drag racing burn down. He may just be doing this to play psychological games with Fred Shafer.
That's true. There is some psychological effect coming up to the starting line. You notice now he's hanging back.
I think Kevin Dabney is just looking for an edge, something to throw Fred Shafer's train of thought off. Boy, he is taking his time up there. I'm sure our event director, Jim Harris, has probably got him on the clock at this point.
All right, looks like we're ready to go. Barefoot takes it easily.
After all that, it looked like Dabney may have gotten the hole shot. But the crowd is more than happy with the fact that it will be Barefoot versus Taurus in the final round. Watch Fred Shafer's style here. Full throttle again, up the ramp. Wouldn't surprise me if Fred stayed in the throttle in the air. Comes down hard. He's taking a rough ride in the cockpit, but he gets the win, while Kevin Dabney could do nothing but watch. Again, strictly a matter of horsepower. Dabney left the starting line very well, but again, not near the power even to the first set of cars. A tremendous amount of air. That obviously hurt any chances he had of chasing down the powerful Chevy. I'll tell you what, that sets up one incredible matchup, Jer.
It certainly will. Lots more action yet to go here at the Orlando Arena. Jack Willman with Taurus going against Fred Shafer and Barefoot.
I'll tell you, even though that's a rivalry between two drivers who don't live more than 10 miles away from each other, if we've seen something here tonight that we've seen before, and that's an early defeat of Bigfoot, that means that both Barefoot and Taurus have a chance to make a big difference in the point standings.
Well, coming up, the battle for the Final Four. So stay with us.
Welcome back to the Orlando Arena in Orlando, Florida, and we weren't kidding when we said that there were 24 competitors in the mud racing ranks here at this incredible U.S. Hot Rod Association event. The very first machine coming out in this segment will be trying to get into the Quick 4 Grand Slam shootout right now. You've got to run quicker than 2.02 seconds to bump two-time world champ Tom Martin and get into this field, Jerry Devine.
Well, Garland Wall's coming up next with the Gambler. Good run. Ooh, and he goes over the disqualification line.
I'll tell you, this Chevy S10 is another heavyweight, a fuel-injected machine that is still carrying about 3,000 pounds. He goes out of bounds, but I'll tell you what, it looked like he was doing everything he could to stop it. I don't think the front brakes were actually working as strong as they could have.
All right, coming up next, it's the Whiplash with John Willis behind the controls. 454 cubic inch engine.
This Merritt Island, Florida-based Jeep has already won one U.S. Hot Rod Association event in 1988. They won the New Orleans Superdome program. It's got some power.
Whoa! And he gets it stopped.
A lot of tire spin off the starting line here. You can tell by the height of the rooster tails. Look at the distortion on these tires as we're talking about tire speeds of 170 miles an hour. 2.23 seconds, though, is 0.2 of a second slower than what he needed.
The ruts of the track are getting a little bit severe now, Brett.
You can notice the difference from when we started off. There is, as you pointed out, Jerry, a problem off the starting line that's going to make you use brains more than horsepower to get down it. This is the band that finished #2 in the world last year to Tom Martin.
Jeff Sturkin, Ground Zero, the name of the machine. Good run.
He's on the brakes hard and stops it within 3 or 4 feet of the disqualification line. And again, a good launch. Now you see where the ruts are starting to affect the drivers. Sturkin actually had the wheels turned to the left and it was still going straight. 2.08 seconds. He misses bumping Tom Barton out of the field by 0.06 of a second.
Next racer up. Here we go. This is More Sure Madness. Kenny Heckel doing the driving. Whoa, and he gets it stopped, but he hit the one side of the pit there.
Machine was just skating around down at the finish line. You'll notice that Heckel, concerned with going out of bounds, shut the engine off just before the finish line. That may have been the worst possible thing to do, as he had plenty of room to stop. 2.17 seconds will not get him in the shootout. Here is the nation's hottest Ford product in super-modified mud racing right now. #2 in the point standings from Pennsylvania.
Preston Ward with the Mystic Warrior. This machine flies.
There's no question. It's one of the best working suspensions in the sport. Nitrous oxide injected Ford power and a beautiful car.
Oh, and it sounded like something might have happened at half track.
I'll tell you, it was under throttle when whatever happened. As you heard the RPMs go to the moon there for a second. Preston Ward is a 15-year veteran of this business. He knows when to get out of the throttle. It was on a great run at that point. It sounded like a transmission problem. And folks, that machine didn't have power from half track on, and it still ran 235. That could have been awesome.
Oh, look at this hot rod. Little 57 Thunderbird. It's called the Dirty Bird. Gary Osteen.
Osteen runs not one but two different mud racing vehicles here in Florida. This is his newest, and it is a crowd favorite.
Oh, and he shuts it off, and he drops right down to the bottom.
That's the truth, isn't it? If you don't go to the shutdown area, you're going to sink, like I said, like a rock. No question about it. You watch this front end take a nosedive as soon as he gets off the gas right at the finish line at 2.39 seconds. There it goes, down under. It won't be good enough to qualify for the Grand Slam.
Well, coming up next is Tony Thierro with Let's Boogie.
This Ford Ranger has already proven itself to be one of the quicker full-body pickup trucks in the sport. There aren't many of them left. Everybody going to fiberglass bodies and such. This thing can put out some power.
Good run. Whoa, and he hits that line.
You know, it's incredible. When we started this 80-foot to stop, 80-foot to start business a couple of years ago, we thought, well, maybe it's not enough room to shut down at these kind of speeds. I'll tell you what, it's about perfect because you're either going to stop within a couple of inches or you're going to go out within a couple of inches. That's the way everybody who's been disqualified tonight has. You can see Thierro knew it. At 2.39 seconds, he didn't have to worry, though.
Well, here's the intruder, Tom Marsh, doing the driving. You know, Brett, that 80 feet to start and 80 feet to stop has certainly made mud racing so much more competitive.
Oh, no question. It's like two different events. Who can get to the finish line the quickest and who can stop it from 65 miles per hour.
Unbelievable. Oh, little mud on the camera on that one. And he goes out.
And he knows it. Look at Tom Marsh. All the way from the state of Ohio, only to get his one shot at this mud pit, and he goes right through the boundary by a couple of inches, just like everybody else. And yeah, we did spray a cameraman. Tom Marsh says, oh, well, maybe next time.
All right, stroll for gold. Gary Osteen.
Now, the whole time we were watching Tom Marsh, Gary Osteen had to get a three-wheeler ride back up to the starting line. He just ran the Dirty Bird, and he jumped right in the cockpit of his other machine, a nitrous oxide-injected Chevy Jeep funny car. And this is his second effort.
Of course, if you got more than one entry in the field, you have a chance to win more money.
That's right. U.S. Highway Association rules allow you to run a maximum of 2 vehicles.
Not good, not good. That's an ugly sight. Looks like he might have a fire under there.
Actually, I believe the foam rubber that they use to keep debris out of the fuel injection system may have caught fire for a second inside. The pops and bangs you heard were definitely a valve train problem. It sounded like an intake valve hanging open. Watch when he leaves the starting line and you'll see the problem, I'm sure. I tell you, those pops and bangs in this building, even with 24,000 people, sounded like shotgun blasts going off. There you see the problem. And amazingly, Osteen stayed in it till you see the mushroom cloud there at half track that is made basically of dollar signs in the sport of mud racing. He's got an expensive repair job right there.
That can be expensive.
Well, there's one man who is definitely not unhappy with the way this second qualifying session turned out, and that is two-time world champ Tom Martin, who survives on the bump spot, number 4 in a 4-car field for the Grand Slam shootout. Surprisingly, Jerry, Martin is not number 1, but he's in. That's all that matters.
That's right. As long as you're in the field of that fast 4, that's all that counts.
That's right. That's where Tom Martin will have a chance to pad his lead in the World Championship point standings, as a very, very, very disappointed Gary Osteen realizes that out of 2 machines, he doesn't have either one in the field. So a surprise with Byron Tinkey in the Bad Habit supercharged machine from Iowa, leading the field with a track record 1.92 second effort. Follow that up with a tremendous run by Jody Kelly out of North Carolina in the Stumpy's T at 1.98 seconds. Chad Miller's Instant T coming back from that horrendous crash in Tampa at 1.99, the first sub-2-second run here at Orlando, and Tom Martin on the bump at 2.02. It will be a battle to remember when we return to the shootout in Orlando. Stay with us.
We're back at the Orlando Arena, and it's time for the Grand Slam shootout.
That's true, Jerry, and it is a war. We've already seen 3 machines make official runs under 2 seconds flat, and the situation we're looking at now is that the man who has to run last in this shootout is Tom Martin. And you don't think that's going to put the pressure on everybody else? Look out.
Well, coming up first, it's going to be the Instant T with Chad Miller behind the controls.
The first man under 2 seconds flat here this evening with a 199 in qualifying, coming back from that horrific crash in Tampa that we showed you earlier. You know he's got the horsepower to take the #1 spot.
Chad cleans out that engine and gets it ready to go. Great run! And he gets it stopped, and he knows it.
Chad is happy, but I'll tell you, you could see tire spin there. Yeah, the machine never even really moved when he nailed the throttle. It simply spun the tires, and I'm afraid that that's going to cost him in elapsed time. You bet. 2.52 seconds. Had the clock started as soon as that thing actually moved from sitting on the line, it would have been an incredible run, but tire spin, actually probably too much power cost him.
All right, coming up is the bad habit. Byron Tinky.
It has been eons since Byron Tinky was in a championship final, and you know he wants this one bad.
He came all the way from Iowa, Tiffin, Iowa, and he'd love to go home to Iowa with a win. Same thing, Byron Tinky with a lot of wheel spin coming off that line.
But I want you to notice something. It did spin the tires, but the car did start moving fairly well. The most important thing is that he shut the engine off before the finish line because he was worried about going too far. Look at this thing airborne in the mid-range. It had a ton of power. He coasts across the finish line at 2.06 seconds. Had Tinky stayed in the throttle to the finish line, that would have been another new track record.
Unbelievable. You can see how much noise is going on here at the Orlando Arena. Stumpy's Tee up next with Jody Kelly behind the controls. Wow, a great run.
And he shuts it off before the finish line. Kelly knows it. It looks like he's upset. I think he knew that he had a heck of a run going and was still concerned about the disqualification line. Look at this thing. Tire distortion, shutting off before the finish line by 0.02 of a second. He gets the #1 spot now at 2.04 seconds. And this is setting up the drama for Tom Martin.
Ah, yes. Here comes Tom Martin, two-time national champion, current point leader, Tom Martin with the Mud Patrol from Portage, Indiana.
Now, you bet Tom Martin knows exactly what he has to do. Keep it under control, stop it in time, and go quicker than 2.04 seconds. Now, Tom always takes his time on the starting line. He won't leave until everything is perfect.
Nitrous oxide power. Look where Tom is sitting, his weight directly over those rear wheels.
All 375 pounds. A lot of people think that might be an advantage.
Tom puts it in gear, brings it up to the starting line. This is it, final racer of the night in the mud racing division. Will he be able to do it? Wow! He brings the front end right up off the ground.
He stops it in time. And I think, Jerry, that even the crowd believes that may have been good enough. There's Tom getting up out of the cockpit, saluting the crowd as always. I cannot believe that he actually did a power stand down at the finish line of the track. You called it, Jerry. The front end goes up sheerly from horsepower down near the finish line. Absolutely incredible run. The slow motion replay, I'm afraid, will probably show that there was some tire spin, but it wasn't anywhere near as much as anybody else had. This guy's happy.
He sure is. Tom Martin getting congratulations from his crew.
Boy, there wasn't much tire spin if there was any. Now watch the front end. 4 feet in the air. He goes across the finish line by 0.03 of a second. Tom Martin comes through on the last run with yet another victory.
Tom Martin carrying that front end for about 30 feet.
Absolutely incredible job, and that's why Tom Martin is two-time world champ. This win will do nothing but pad the lead he has for a record-breaking 3rd consecutive world title. Man, it's nearly impossible to stop. But coming up next, an all-star monster truck finale that should be just as wild.
Don't go anywhere. Well, here we go with the Monster Finals.
Fred Shafer and the incredible Barefoot Chevrolet takes on a team that lives literally 10 miles from his house around the Granite City, Illinois area, Jack Willman and Taurus. It's amazing that these two teams travel from coast to coast across the United States and Canada. And like I said, they live 10 miles away, and they do battle everywhere but at home.
Well, Fred Shafer with Barefoot comes to the line first. He's about ready to go.
You know, earlier in the Taurus versus Bigfoot matchup, we talked about the difference between the Taurus lightweight, high horsepower machine and Bigfoot being a little heavier with an engine combination that doesn't put out quite as much power. There is no difference between these two, Jerry. You know that as well as I. Both lightweight, high horsepower, extremely ill-handling trucks.
And talented drivers. Both drivers very, very well attuned to their own machines. They know what to do if the machine acts a little strangely on the cars, coming off the cars. Jack Willman with Taurus just about ready to go. Fred Shafer making his final approach now.
Maybe seeing a little more mind game playing on the starting line here as Jack Willman looked like he was going up the stage, then nailed the throttle for a little quick burnout up to the cars. Fred Shafer once again gets stuck sitting back at the starting line. So far, it hasn't seemed to have affected Fred Shafer, any of the games that have been played against him. I should point out that the Taurus team, with the crowd definitely behind it, as you can hear, probably has more to gain here in this final than Shafer, if only because they were so close behind the Bigfoot team, number 2 in points coming into this event. If they could win this, it could make a big difference in points.
These engines and these machines are very similar to that used in drag racing, and of course, a lot of times the drivers will put them in neutral and clean those engines out. They want to make sure that they're absolutely ready to respond when they get that green light. Starting line personnel making sure that everything is lined up perfectly, because a lot is at stake with this race. Not only the prize money available tonight, but also the points. Barefoot takes the win.
You could not have asked for a prettier final round dash. Side by side off the line, side by side in the air. Fred Shafer asks who won, and they tell him.
The crowd's going wild.
Obviously, it was close enough that Fred Shafer had no idea who won. Look at this hit on the cars. Sheer power sailing this thing a full truck length over the finish line. That was the most brute power propelled run we've seen all night long. And another rough landing. He stops it right in front of the fans who are already going nuts. In the other lane, Jack Willman left the starting line dead even with the Barefoot Chevy. He also got it way up in the air. He lands right on the finish line as well, a rough bounce, but it was a matter of 4 feet at the finish line, making the difference between a winner and a loser. Fred Shafer pulls it off in a big, big win.
Well, our crews are down on the floor right now seeing if we can get a word with both of these drivers.
I'll tell you what, Fred Shafer has got to be elated. It has been a long, dry spell for the Barefoot team this year. We'll get a chance to talk to the winner here at Orlando when we return in just a moment. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we've got the winner of this monster truck war here in Orlando, Fred Shafer, the driver of Barefoot. Fred, you didn't even know who won that final round, did you?
That's right. I was concentrating on the track conditions there and wasn't looking at all in the other lane and didn't really have time like that in a short course to look in the other lane. And I didn't know who won until they actually called me the winner.
Well, Fred, take a look at the monitor there and explain that last run to us.
Okay. Okay, I'm lining up here and I'm trying to hit the best spot I can pick here in the cars. And truck's flying a little bit crooked. And let's say I'm looking forward and trying to keep control of the truck and you try and stay out of the wall there. It's a little bit tight in there for shutdown. And you see, at that time, I didn't know who won there, like I said, and until they said that I was the winner. It was a real close race.
Well, we know you've got a busy schedule. Where are you headed for next?
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Well, congratulations again, Fred, on a great night of monster truck racing.
Tremendous job.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, we've also got our super modified mud racing winner down there, Tom Barton, the two-time world champ. Buddy, you pulled another one out of the hat, a wheel-standing last dash win.
Hey, it's been a good run. I hope everyone enjoyed it, and it's been great.
Now, we've got a monitor down there on the floor. I want you to watch it and tell us about this pass.
Hey, that'd be great. Let's do it. Well, first of all, I launched off right there. I hit second gear. Right as the front end came up high gear, and was really torquing the wheels up there. It really took off. Then I was worried about stopping. I hit the brakes, bouncing all over the place. I didn't think I was going to stop before the banner, but just in time. It was great.
Well, Tom, where does mud racing take you next?
Well, we're going about 1,300 miles north to Worcester, Massachusetts, and it's going to be mighty cold, I'm sure, up there.
I presume you mean for the opposition. Tremendous job tonight on another great win, Tom. Unbelievable.
Well, Brett, before we leave, let's take another look at the point standings. First for the monster trucks.
Well, as we pointed out, things changed dramatically, but had Taurus won this event, they would have overtaken Bigfoot for the World Championship points lead. As it turns out, Bigfoot is still leading by the slimmest of margin, but look at the number 3 spot. Barefoot and Freddie Shafer moves up to now seriously threaten the other two machines that are leading the top 3. Chuck Hawkins' Excalibur, based on his performances recently, is hanging into the 4th spot, and Rob Morrison, the 4-wheel Crazy Ford, has moved back up to 5th. Rob Fuchs has dropped all the way from 3rd to 6th with the First Blood Ford. Jim Reese has dropped an equal number in the Ecology Eliminator.
Number 8 is High Voltage with 772 points, and number 9 is Hot Stuff, Todd Blazer. Then, rounding out the number 10 spot, the AM/PM Rocket.
Dale Boucher in the Rocket and Todd Blazer in the Hot Stuff machine making a lot of changes. The Rocket drops. Hot Stuff gets into the top 10 for the first time in the 1990 season. As far as super modified mud racing standings, we don't need to tell you anything, really. Tom Barton is just dominating the super modified ranks. Mystic Warrior, the Ford machine of the Ward family that you saw from Florida breaking a transmission here tonight, is still number 2, but Ron Smith has moved up 3 spots to 3rd with the Gold Fever entry. Jim Weber has moved up substantially with the American-made Chevy.
Stumpy's T holds down the number 5 spot with 1,048 points.
That's kind of interesting in that Jody Kelly did well here, but actually lost a position tonight.
Number 6 is Bad Habit. Then comes the Blue Max. Number 8 with Red Heat. Instant T, number 9, and Clay Langley and the Nitro Express rounding out the number 10 spot.
That is interesting. You know, Byron Tinky and the Bad Habit moving up to 6th here after his performance tonight. And the number 7 and 8 machines are owned by the same man and driven by the same guy, Melvin Brown. We'll be seeing you next from Worcester, Massachusetts. Jerry, a track that's always one of the quickest. Should be neat.
But anything can happen in the monster truck division. We're not finished yet. We're only halfway there.
That's for sure. At this halfway point, it's going to be wild. But on behalf of myself, Brett Kepner, and Jerry Devine, thanks for being with us. We'll see you next from Massachusetts.